So hello everyone. We are welcoming all of you in this event. So some seconds to have all of you, all the participants joining us, and then we will start. Okay, please, Sergio, could you stop? Exactly. So I think we can start a minute after 3 and give the time to the others to join us during the first part of the meeting, but to not go too much in late, I think that we can go. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Daniela Quaggia. I'm working in Cittadinanza Attiva, that is a civic association. I would like to welcome to this first annual online event dedicated to the BioReCer project, and in particular dedicated to the stakeholder of this project. We are thrilled to have you join us today to discuss the future of bio-based products, their certification, and the pivotal role that they play in building a sustainable circular economy. Throughout the enhancement and fortification of existing certification schemes, the BioReCer project aims to enhance the acceptance of feedstock and products based on biological waste, both by industry and consumers, thus supporting the competitiveness of the bio-based economy. But this journey can only be successful with the valuable insight, active participation, and support of all the actors dealing with bio-waste and bioproducts. And this is the reason why we created the BioReCer stakeholder platform, our collaborative space where stakeholders, upon joining through our website, can interact and share experiences, provide feedback on bio-based value chain, and contribute to the assessment methodology we are developing. So this collaborative effort includes online and in-person focus group, discussion, brainstorming session, workshop, trainings, and webinars like the one we are hosting today. So I encourage you to actively engage, ask questions, answer to our polls, and share your perspective during our today discussion. So when you want to speak, please raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon at the bottom of the window on the right on the screen. And so to kick off our interaction, let's go to know each other, and please let us know which actors do you represent? Thank you for your answer. Please, we give some seconds to everyone to I can see a lot of bioindustry representatives, a lot of institutions and consumer associations, biomass producers. And please, those that are clicking on other, can you specify the affiliation in the chat so we can have a more detailed idea. Okay, just a second. I can see that 2 participants raise your hands. Just a second, and we will close the pool. Okay, so I can share with you who we are. As you can see, bioindustry institution and consumer association and biomass producer mainly, and a lot of others that can specify on the chat. Thank you. And additionally, I would like to ask, are you already a stakeholder or member of the project registered on the BioReCer website? Please take a look on this pool and let us know if you are yet registered. I can see a lot of yes. Okay. I think about the 80 now % of the people who is joining us is yet member of our stakeholder platform. Thank you. And for the ones that are not yet, you can find afterwards in the chat the link to join us. But now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Pedro Villanueva from Setaqua, the coordinator of the BioReCer project. Pedro will provide us with an in-depth overview of the project and of the work done in its first year of activity. So Pedro, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Daniela, for the kind presentation. I'm going to share the screen. Okay. Okay, do you see the screen in full screen?
Yes, we see your full screen.
Okay. So, as Daniela said before, my name is Pedro Villanueva. I am project manager and researcher in Setaqua Technology Center. It's a technology center located in the region of Galicia in Spain. And I'm going to give you a summary of the main goals of the project and also the main advances of the project. First of all, the project BioReCer, or Biological Resources Certification Schemes, is an Horizon Europe project. It's an innovation action. It has a duration of 3 years with 5 million euros of budget, and it consists in 4 demonstrative sites. In the project, there are partners from up to 7 different countries, and also partners with different kind of profiles or entities. We have, do you hear this noise? Because I have construction just in the.
We don't hear any noise.
Okay, because I have workers in the floor above. Okay. We have universities, technology centers, private companies and business clusters, and also standardization and certification and communication bodies. First, I would like to highlight the rationale behind the project. In the recent years, biowaste use of feedstock has been restricted to specific industries, usually with low added value in the market. Also, it should be highlighted that the transition to a bio-based economy shall address challenges such as seasonality, composition, spatial distribution of all the biomass feedstocks. Also should be highlighted the fact that not all biowaste or biomass are valorized as feedstock, and also the poor data and information about its traceability from each origin, where the place is produced these feedstocks, up to the final destination or consumer. Also, it should be remarked that there are no sustainable indicators with homogeneous criteria. This means that when the environmental performance of these biomasses or feedstocks are implemented or are carried out, the final results sometimes are not replicable or are not comparable between each kind of assessment. And also the lack of a certification scheme targeting specifically the other uses of biomasses apart from food and energy industries. Also, another very important milestone in the development of the bio-based industry is the publish in the 2018 of the European Union Bioeconomy Strategy. This strategy aims to accelerate the deployment of a sustainable European bioeconomy. And also, this strategy includes an action plan that is based in several priorities. One priority is the strengthening and scale up of the bio-based sectors. Another priority is the deploy of local bioeconomies and the understanding of the ecological boundaries of the bioeconomy. So the strategies focus on a system approach in order to increase the overall industry, the overall sustainability and circularity of the bioeconomy. Also, it should be remarked that the current general context at a socioeconomic and geopolitical situation. We have a war in Europe between Ukraine and Russia, and also we have another war right now between Israel and the Palestine region. Also, it should be highlighted the context of the crisis of raw materials and energy supply, and the necessity of deploy a more resilient industry in order to get some kind of independence from external resources. Also, in this context, the circular economy plays a key role, and the very important that in the recent years is the feedstocks or biomasses are a very interesting alternative in order to replace the fossil raw materials. Sorry, but I am not hearing myself. Interrupt me if you have some kind of noise problems. Excuse me. And having in mind all this rationale and context, appear the project BioReCer, which main goal is to complement the current certification schemes and enhance bio-based circular systems by promoting the sustainability and trade of resources. Also, the project has several specific objectives, 6 specific objectives. One objective related to the map of the current European biomass flows. Another objective related to develop a multidimensional impact assessment and traceability framework. Then a third objective related to the integration of this multidimensional impact assessment into a track and trace assessment framework, and the implementation of this framework into a certification scheme. Then the validation of all this framework and this certification scheme into the 4 case studies developed in the framework of the project. Also, the development of a BioReCer ICT tool that will be very easy for the consumers, producers, and traders of biomass feedstocks. And finally, one specific objective related to the obtention and the maximization of the outreach of the project to the relevant stakeholders in the supply chain. Because of that, all of you are here today in this event in order to get this input and feedback from all of you in order to include this impact into the project and results. Regarding the BioReCer impact pathways, taking into account short, medium, and long-term impact, we have firstly in the project the more immediately results that are the governance framework for the environmental and traceability assessment, the creation of a protocol based on the interaction with the stakeholders, this new methodology for the analysis of the sustainability and traceability of the biomass feedstocks, the standardization roadmap, the BioReCer ICT tool, and the validation in the case studies. All these results will be traduced or translated into several outcomes that are the definition of the new methodologies and indicators for sustainability and track and trace assessment, the integration of this methodology or framework into a system certification scheme, and finally, the development of this digital tool that serves as platform for certifiers, producers, traders, and consumers. At the end, at a long term, it's expected that the project will have a very important impact in the sustainability use of biological resource by bio-based industries by means of the use of secondary raw materials, lower environmental impact, and the social acceptance. Therefore, the BioReCer project will encourage the establishment of new bio-based value chains, promoting the use of biological feedstocks as secondary raw materials to replace fossil-based raw materials. It should be remarked that the main focus of the project is not related to those feedstocks that are intended to be used as food, feed, or energy. And also, it should be highlighted that the project is mainly focused in the very first stages of the supply chain, from the production of this feedstock until the first transformation of this feedstock as it is considered as a secondary raw material. So the project consists in several phases. Here are depicted the several phases of the project. One first stage related to the collection of all the knowledge related to the biomass flows in the value chain, the determination of the gaps, barriers, and legal requirements to the implementation and the use of these feedstocks. Then a second phase related to the development of methodologies to assure the traceability and measure the environmental performance. Connecting with those two first phases or stages is the validation of all these developments in the fourth case studies. And then in the third stage is the implementation or adaptation of these developments in the certification schemes and the creation of a digital platform that will join distinct actors in the product's value chain. Also, as a cross-cutting stage or phase, we have all this interaction with stakeholders in order to get all this valuable impact and feedback to be implemented in the project. Regarding the 4 case studies that are will be implemented in the project, we have first the case study 1, located here in Galicia, Spain, focused on several types of biomass, the sewage sludge and the canning industry. The selection of this case study is related with the fact that Spain fishing sector represents up to 20% of the European Union production. Also, it should be highlighted that Spain is the first canning manufacturer in the European Union. So because of that, these case studies and feedstock were selected. Then the second case study is related to the region of Lombardia in Italy. It focused on several kinds of feedstocks, such as organic fraction of municipal solid waste, sewage sludge again, agro waste, and non-hazardous liquid organic waste. The rationale behind this selection is that the population of this area represents approximately 15% of the population in Italy. Then the third case study is located in Central Macedonia, in Greece, and it's focused on several biomasses, such as fruit waste from processing, cereal crop byproducts, and pruning waste. And the main reasons of this selection is the fact that 26% of the production of Greece primary sector comes from this region. And finally, the fourth case study is located in Västernorrland in Sweden, and the biomass selected is the forest industry subproducts. And the rationale behind this selection is the fact that the forest industry represents approximately 10 to 12% of the Swedish industry in terms of sales and employment. And how about the main achievements so far after 1 year of the project? Okay, as I repeated before, within the specific objectives of the project is the elaboration of this mapping of the current European biomass flows. Because of that, we perform a material flow analysis of the biological feedstocks at the European level. The second main achievement is the setting up of the stakeholders platform with identification of the stakeholders, using a participatory approach, and also the organization of several focus groups and webinars in Italy, Spain, Greece, and Sweden. And finally, the development of the architecture for the ICT tool, the BioReCer ICT tool, taking into account the kind of data that are going to be used, and also security uses. Delving into the material flow analysis of the biological feedstocks, here in this slide are depicted the results for the case study 1 and case study 2 in terms of the sewage sludge flow analysis. And as can you see here, in the case of sewage sludge, you can see that also a very little amount of the available feedstock is used by the bio-based industry. And the main fate of the available feedstock is the conventional uses, such as agricultural use, compost, landfill, etc. Also, on the other hand, in the case of the case study 2, for the organic fraction of municipal solid waste, again, the bio-based industry use of the biomass available is a very residual percentage of the potential fates of the biological feedstock available within this kind of biomasses. Then continue with the case study 3. In the case of agricultural biomass, again, the bio-based industry only implies the 3% of the harvested biomass. And in the case of the case study 4, the results are the same. Only 3% of the bio-based of the biological feedstock are used within the bio-based manufacturing industry. So, as the main conclusion from this study or derivable of the project is that the conventional treatments are the main fate of the biological feedstocks that are available, mainly with waste management and energy use of the available feedstocks, and the bio-based industry used by the bio-based manufacturing industry is lower than 3%, taking into account the whole possible fates that these available feedstocks can be used all over the supply chain. So the degree of circularity and upcycling is remarkably low. So it's necessary the investment toward the increasing of this circular economy, aiming the upcycling of the recycling technologies, better management policies, the public embracement and support, that means funds, in order to make this possible, and the development of novel infrastructures and the increasing of the efficiency of the recycling technologies. And that's all. And I hope you hear me correctly, but I have a lot of noise here. I'm sorry.
So thank you, Pedro. We can hear very well.
Yes, really, because it was madness here.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, don't worry. We heard that you are laughing because maybe you heard a lot of.
I didn't hear myself.
No, don't worry. We can hear you, and thank you for your presentation. And I would like to ask to the participants some general questions about the project, anonymously. Don't worry. And I would like to ask, or Sergio, I can see now my pool options. Can you help me?
Okay.
Why disappear? Just a second. In any case, in the meantime, the pool appear again. Sometimes the technology doesn't help us. But I would like to ask you if you do you find the project interesting, and if someone of you would like to tell us why. So raise your hand and I'll give you the floor if someone wants to rock the ice. And the pool disappear, I would like to ask you to wait just 1 second. We activated the chat that at the beginning doesn't work, so doing that maybe something went wrong. But in any case, I would like to also ask you through this poll, see if you see particular obstacles in implementing this kind of project in general or in your reality. We know that there are a lot of different stakeholders, so a lot of different experiences. There is someone that would like to share with us also in the chat, if you prefer, their thoughts about the BioReCer project. Okay, I see that someone in the chat put it as, I think, obstacle the local legislation. Eva, would you like to say something more to us? I can give you the voice if you do you want to explain why do you think the local legislation is an obstacle? So I'm giving the floor to Eva. So please, Eva, if you want, you can activate. Okay.
Thank you. Sorry. Yes, it's about from Sweden. On Swedish perspective, I have experienced that using bio sludge or fiber sludge from the external treatment plant in the forest industry, in the pulp and paper production, is the obstacle is local legislation, because it will be treated as waste because of some metal content origins from the trees, growing trees that we are using for the raw material.
Yes, sure. And I think there are a lot of different legislation among our countries. So this is, of course, a point to address. I don't know if you, Pedro, would like to comment about this point. If not, I can go ahead with the comments.
I would like, but I can't hear. Sorry, because of this problem that I have with the noise in the above floor.
Don't worry, I'll go ahead with the comments. I can see someone that say that it's a very interesting and useful project, but she see one problem that could arise, and is that for the new products that are not on the market yet, maybe there is no legislation yet. So again, the point it's the regulatory activity about this kind of process and products. Thank you, Electra. Someone else that would raise some point about the obstacles or the good point of the presentation of the project. In the meantime, we fix the pool. Sergio, do you have any news? Because the third question I would like to share, it's a ranking question. So we need the pool. If not, we can go ahead and maybe come back to the to these questions afterward. Don't worry. And so I'm now glad to give the floor to Elisa Nica from Brunello University of London for a presentation on the circular economy indicators, in which we will try to directly involve you, asking your point of view by polls and very brief surveys. So sorry in advance if we will ask again to define your affiliation, but it's important for the following interaction. So thank you, and Elisa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Daniela. Let me share my screen. One second to put it. Okay, do you see my screen in
yes, we can see perfectly.
Great. Okay, so as Daniela mentioned, I'm Elisa Nica, from a research fellow at Brunel University in London. And today we're going to have a discussion on circular economy indicators. Basically, indicators are a kind of they are metrics that can be used to measure the state or the performance, in this case, in terms of circularity. And we are also going to discuss how we select circular economy indicators. So before starting this discussion, I would like first to introduce myself and my group. As I said, I'm coming from the Brunel University of London. We are a very big group of more than 20 people. We work in three main research areas: water and wastewater, technologies optimization, digitalization and smartification, meaning developing decision support systems. And also we work a lot, and this is basically my area of expertise, on the sustainability and circularity measurement and assessment by developing methodologies, tools, and indicators that can be used to measure and assess sustainability and circularity. We have a very big portfolio of projects, and many of them, for many of them, we are responsible for the circularity measurement and assessment, and BioReCer is one of these projects. And I would also like to mention that within this area of expertise, we are also a member of the drafting team of the new ISO standard, the ISO 59020, which is basically on the circular economy measurement and assessment. So now, having introduced myself, I would like to ask you again to introduce yourselves by answering this poll. Daniela, is the poll ready? We can, yes.
Yes, it is. Please say again as who are you?
Yes.
In particular,
sorry, Daniela, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. In particular, we are answering to biological feedstock producer and user, because as you will see, there will be a specification in the next slides and in the next work. But it's a work that it's interesting for all the involved stakeholders today. So let us know how many producers, user, or both are here, and we will let you know why we're asking this one. And for the one that are clicking on other, please, now that the chat is functioning, specify what do you mean by other, so we can know very well who are you. just a second to give the space to everyone to answer. And then I will let you know the results.
So while you're answering these first questions, I can probably explain you a bit that you will see that in the exercise of selecting indicators, stakeholders are very important because we need to select indicators that are relevant to the different stakeholders that are involved. The first set of stakeholders that we need to approach and collaborate with them in the beginning is the stakeholders that are directly related with the circular economy indicators and the specific systems. So since in this project we are dealing with the feedstock, the first set of stakeholders that we need to collaborate with are the producers of these feedstocks and also the users of this feedstock. And then, of course, once we have established the collaboration with them and started selecting indicators that make sense to them, we also need to reach out to other stakeholders that are related and are interested in the results in order to get their opinion as well. And in that sense, we will manage to have a set of indicators that everybody can understand and they are meaningful for different stakeholders. That's why basically we ask these questions.
So Elisa, as you can see, we have different biological users, different that are both producers and users, and less only producers of biological feedstock, and a lot of others that are specifying who they are in the chat. So I think we have the first idea to go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Should we also continue with the second question or to?
Yes, sure. Now I will share the second question so you can just a second. Okay, so the second question is related to the feedstock that you are dealing with. So please let us know. In the meantime, Nicoletta has raised his hand, so I can give you the floor to say. Please, Nicoletta, the floor is yours. You can activate your microphone and say something while the others are answering. Nicoletta?
Hello?
Okay, now we can hear you.
Yes, but it was a mistake, sorry.
Oh, okay, don't worry. It's okay, you can deactivate. Okay, going back to the feedstock that are represented mainly today, among the 60 participants that are now connected, I will share with you the results. As you can see, we have forestry residues, agricultural residues, a lot, organic traction, sewage sludge, fishery residues, just one, I think. And again, other feedstock that can be uploaded on the chat. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So we can continue with the presentation, and basically to explain you why your participation is important. I already mentioned why we need your participation. Basically, it is because in order to have a complete and a meaningful set of indicators, we need to collaborate with the people who are actually affected by or interested in the outcomes. So the indicators basically need to accurately reflect the goals and the objectives of the stakeholders, and they also need to be relevant and meaningful to the stakeholders. So there are different ways of the different stakeholders contributing to the indicator selection exercise. As I mentioned, the most important thing is to understand and agree upon your objectives and your goals. With all these workshops and participatory approaches that we are having in this project, it is basically your chance to voice your opinions and suggestions. You can help us define the value proposition, and actually in this workshop and today's event, we are going to try to develop together value proposition canvases in a while. Then we need stakeholders in order to help us prioritize indicators based on the relevance, feasibility, importance, etc. And the final step is to help us finalize and refine the indicators. Of course, there are many challenges, as you can imagine, with this participatory approach for the selection of the indicators. At the moment, for us, the most important one is the consistent engagement and participation. So your consistent engagement and participation. So now I would like to show you a map, kind of a map, on how we select indicators in order to better visualize the contribution of stakeholders, basically in all the different steps of the indicator selection. So in order to select circular economy indicators, we need to have circular economy experts. So basically, these are us. We know what the circular economy should measure, the objectives of the circular economy, the principles, the targets. So this is us, the circular economy experts, who are responsible to give you the objectives and the general concept of circular economy. But then it is you, the stakeholders, and your opinion on what should be measured. This is complementary to the circular economy objectives. So together, combining these two elements, we come with available indicators that we have, and we are able to identify the gaps. So there are numerous indicators available in the literature, but there are several gaps on what these indicators can measure. So with this exercise, we can identify the need of developing new indicators. Coming to the circular economy aspects of the indicators, we need to measure three different things, and these are very important. The first thing is the value. When we create a circular system, we create a value, and we try to share this value. So this is one aspect, one circularity aspect that needs to be measured. The second one focuses on the resources themselves, the ones that are incorporated in our system, and we need to measure the inputs and the outputs in terms of circularity. And then circular economy has the goal that it aims basically to achieve sustainability. So sustainability is an intrinsic part of circularity. So we also need to ensure that we measure environmental, social, and economic aspects. And here, on these aspects, you can help us define indicators specific to these aspects based also on your understanding and your systems. Then the indicators need to be SMART. SMART is an abbreviation for specific, measurable, relevant, achievable, and time-bound indicators. Again, here, your participation, the stakeholders' participation is very important because the data availability, what is actually measurable, what is relevant to you, what is specific, it is basically the stakeholders, you, who are going to tell us. Then we need to define benchmarks so that the indicators that you are provided with can be compared with something in order to understand your progress. And then we need to have the final list of the indicators. And then in this step, the stakeholders can help us to verify and shortlist these indicators, and finally to assign weights in order to have aggregated measures. So I would like to continue with some things about circular economy, some definitions, let's say. So this is the representation of circular economy. And we use this representation because with this we can basically see that circular economy materializes in two different cycles, the biological cycle and the technical cycle. It doesn't matter if we start from a renewable or a biotic resource, but the differentiation is related to the product, to the final product. So if the final product can be effectively and safely returned, can be biodegraded and returned to the natural environment, then we have entered the biological cycle. If the final product cannot be safely, it's not biodegradable and cannot be returned to the natural environment, then we have entered the technical cycle. This is very important because the indicators, this differentiation is important because different indicators are relevant for the biological cycles and different indicators are relevant for the technical cycles. So here I have included some characteristics of these two cycles in order to keep them in mind. Now, I would like to show you here where we are in the BioReCer project and what we do. So in the BioReCer project, we have the conventional, let's say, supply chain of taking a resource, processing it, and creating a bioresidue. And then this resource goes to the production of a main product. And then we also have the waste collection and treatment. In BioReCer, we focus on the bioresidues and the bio-waste that is generated prior to the main production use and also after. So as Pedro mentioned, we also deal with sewage sludge, which is considered a bio-waste here. And we are also dealing with residues from agriculture, from agroforestry. So we are basically located here. And we try to characterize and define indicators, circularity and sustainability indicators for these feedstocks. So let's see the characterization of the feedstock, what we mean by characterization of the feedstock. We need to have a circularity label with a clear meaning that can be trusted. So the thing is that the current understanding is that if we use waste, if we take a waste and we use it as a feedstock to produce another product, then the utilization of the waste is circular. However, this is a very simplistic and a very reductionist approach that does not consider specificities of circular economy. So basically, not all waste is equal. With this understanding, or by characterizing that all waste is circular, if we utilize this waste, then it is circular, then we don't consider the prevention of waste, which is basically one of the first things that we need to consider when we are moving to circular systems. We don't consider at all upstream or downstream interrelationships. And also, we need to reflect to the generation, to the exploitation, and the use of the waste in order to better characterize it. So in BioReCer, we basically develop a new approach for the characterization of the waste, a more appropriate characterization in which we consider the systems thinking and the life cycle approach according to the new ISO 59020. And basically, we try to characterize the waste considering the value that is created or it is shared. So by value, we can mean either the intrinsic value, so this can be the quality of the feedstock or the properties of the feedstock, but the value can also be either economic or environmental or social value. We also consider the resource flows, the sustainability, and with this, we focus a lot on the persons who have produced, the producers of this feedstock, and the persons, or the stakeholders basically, who are using this feedstock. So based on this, we have now a second set of questions in order to start to better understanding how to characterize this feedstock and what are the things that the producers are responsible for, the feedstock producers and the feedstock users. So we have a set of questions that is related to the stakeholder type. So if you can start answering the questions based on your stakeholder type, it would be great. And Daniela, I don't know if you want
Yes, please, in the chat, you can find a link. Please click on it. And in this way, as Elisa said, we give the floor to you. Let us know your reality to better work on it. So I ask in particular to producers, users, and both of them to click on the link in the chat and answer to 3 very brief questions, please.
So the question regarding the questions related to the feedstock producers have to do with the collaboration between the producer and the user. This is what we try to understand here in order to start characterizing the feedstock. So the producers and the users can be either collaborate directly. So that means that as a user, a feedstock user, you are collaborating with a specific feedstock producer, or that there is a centralized, you collaborate indirectly, so you don't know exactly who the producer, the feedstock producer is, because there is probably a centralized collection of the different feedstocks, the residues. And then we also ask the producers, for example, if you are aware of the specific requirements, the feedstock requirements that are needed or expected by the feedstock users. And the third question is related to the residue that you generate, if it is avoidable or unavoidable or both. So by avoidable, we mean that maybe you have some processes that if we increase their efficiency, for example, then the residues can be significantly reduced. So this is an example of an avoidable kind of residue, while the unavoidable feedstock or residue or waste is something that would be generated in any way. There are no many things that we can do in order to avoid this generation. For the users, We have again the same question as we had to the producers, like if you collaborate directly or indirectly. But now we try to understand the quality of the feedstock that they receive. So is all the feedstock that you receive useful in order to generate another product? And also, what are the aspects basically that affect the utilization of the feedstock? This might be the type of the biomass or the composition of the feedstock that you receive. Maybe hazardous substances, the presence of hazardous substances completely. If there are hazardous substances, maybe that means that you cannot use this feedstock. And the questions related to the feedstock producers and users is basically a mix of the previous questions that I explained.
So Elisa, thank you. While you are talking, people is answering. So we are receiving a lot of feedback from you. So thank you very much. In this way, we can also restitute to you this information by working on them. And this is the reason why this survey and the other one that will be done will be available also at the end of the meeting and afterwards. So if there is someone that can answer at the moment, we can also send it to you afterward. I don't know, Elisa, if you want to know something now, or go ahead with the presentation and then we will restitute the data.
We can go ahead. No.
Okay.
I'm not sure about the time that we have, probably to continue, whatever you...
Yeah, it's better if you can go ahead with the presentation, but
Perfect.
thank you for all the answer. We received at the moment 15 answer, and there are mainly representative of both biological feedstock and producer and users, and less producers and different users. So thank you everyone for the input.
Great. Okay, so I can continue with what this... Okay, nice. So what do the circularity indicators measure? As I said, there are three main aspects that we need to consider and to ensure that we measure when we develop circularity indicators. The first one that I already explained is the value indicators regarding the value that we create and we share with our system or product or feedstock or whatever. The second one is the resources. So try the indicators related to the resources are the indicators that focus, that can measure, for example, the percentage of reused resource, or the percentage of recycled or renewable. So these are what we call intrinsic circularity indicators. So they measure the degree of closing the loops, the resource loops. And as I mentioned, we also have the sustainability aspects and indicators related to sustainability. At the same time, the indicators, in general, the indicators can be divided into 4 different categories. Indicators that measure and express the actions that we have taken in our system, indicators that measure the output, also the outcome, and then the impacts of our system. And as I said, also, there are specific principles that we need to respect and follow when we select circular economy indicators. And these are the system thinking, the ability to capture change. It doesn't make sense to have an indicator that cannot basically capture the changes that might occur in the system. And of course, the indicators need to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So today we focus a lot on the indicators the value-related indicators. And here I want to start to explain to you how we select these value indicators. And we select them with something that is called value proposition canvas. Why do we use that? Because here we can differentiate between the value proposition, the feedstock producer is responsible for, but we also have the feedstock user, who is basically the customer, and we can start building the customer profile. So in order to understand and to have a fit between the customer profile and the value proposition, we ask the user and the producer to answer specific questions. So for example, the customer profile, in order to be developed, we need to clearly specify the job that the customer, so the feedstock user, is trying to perform. With this job, setting the job clearly, then the user has specific benefits that expects or needs to receive from the feedstock producer, the products and the services that the producer is giving to them. And also they have some pains, what we call them pains, so negative experiences or risks or difficulties related to the product that they receive, to the feedstock that they receive, and they hinder the job to be done. On the other hand, the value proposition is basically the product, the services that the feedstock producer generate. And with these products and services, they suggest or they have some gain creators and some pain relievers. So what do you think as a feedstock producer that your product or service can create? What kind of gains can the feedstock user receives from your products and your services, and also what type of pains you try to relieve with these products and services. The best fit comes when the gains and the pains from the customer profile fit exactly the gain creators and the pain relievers from the value proposition of the feedstock producer. And with this value proposition canvas, we can basically select and start identifying indicators related to the value of the system. So here we have the indicator objectives from our understanding, from our knowledge on circular economy, and also the adequacy of existing indicators. So basically, we have seen that, as I mentioned, the indicators, the intrinsic circularity indicators, which are indicators referring to the reuse, remanufacture, recycling, recover, etc. There are many indicators. Most of the available indicators focus on this aspect of circular economy. But we also have indicators related to the cascading use. Cascading use is referred to the biological cycles instead of the technical cycles. We also have a few indicators for this category, but we have seen that the quality degradation or the change in the quality is not very much targeted or taken into consideration by the available indicators. So this is something that we believe is very important, the change in the quality, and we try to develop and find indicators that can measure and consider this aspect as well. Another very important thing is that, as I mentioned, we don't have indicators related to the characterization of the waste. As I said, not all waste is equal, and we need to have indicators that target this aspect here. We also need to have indicators that can basically validate the resource renewability. So when we say that a resource, a feedstock is renewable, we need to be able to verify and validate that. So we need to be sure that the use of the biotic resources are within the sustainable limits, and probably also that the ecosystem production capacity remains stable over time. Another thing that is very important, and we have seen that it is not taken into consideration by the available indicators, is basically the accumulation of hazardous substances. And another thing that requires further attention is also the biodegradability or the compostability or the ecotoxicity of the products and the feedstocks. And also related to the sustainability aspects, we have indicators that measure the environmental, the social, and the economic aspects. However, we have seen that normally the social aspects are neglected, basically, although indicators exist. In practice, they are neglected. And from the environmental point of view, we've seen that we need to start integrating some additional aspects like the protection and restoration of biodiversity and ecosystems. And also we need to find a way to measure the carbon neutrality in a more not effective, but appropriate way. So now comes the last part of this presentation, which is basically to start developing with you the proposition canvases. So basically, based on this slide here, and I can leave it here if you want, and also you can use these objectives, the circular economy objectives, probably to get some ideas about what kinds of gains or pains you are dealing with and you try to overcome with your systems, probably to get inspiration from that in order to answer the questions of the proposition canvases. Daniela,
yes, in the chat you can find the link to answer to these important questions. And so, as Elisa said, with your input, we can try to build a value proposition canvas directly from your experience. So, again, please click on the chat and give us your input to build this canvas. And to close the next part of the meeting, going ahead with the external expert. So please, just some seconds to give the possibility to the stakeholders to give their inputs, and then we can go ahead with the next presentation and external expert. In the meantime, thank you for the ones that are answering.
I don't know if someone from the audience would like to give some examples of some potential benefits, like gains or pains as a feedstock user that they already are dealing with, what aspects they think would benefit a lot their work, and probably what kind of problems they are currently facing that really hinder their work.
There is a hand raised, so Valentina Vavassori, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, so thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Yeah, this is just to give to Elisa and all of you as stakeholders a suggestion. As wrote before in the chat, I'm from FVA New Media Research, so we are working in some European projects like Sustrack. So on the 16th of November, we will have a discussion and interactive session with more than 100 stakeholders exactly on indicators. So maybe this could be of interest to you and also to stakeholders here. We will also have interactive session on policymakers. I saw in the chat that there are some stakeholders also involved in the policy. So I will just put in the chat the references. If you want to register to the conference, I think you can gain some valuable insights in topics regarding indicators for sure, for circularity and the policy. So this was just to kind reminder, let's say. I don't know if you are registered or not, but this could be of interest for your work also.
Oh, yes, thank you. So just one more time to give the floor to answer, but in the meantime, as Elisa said, if someone has want to comment or share experiences, please, now is the moment. And thank you, Valentina, for sharing the links. Okay. I saw they are answering, but as the time is flying, I don't know, any final comments or question on that presentation, or in any case, I will share with all the participants the results after the meeting, and I think it's time to give the floor to Asta Partanen from nova-Institut, one of the partner of the BioReCer, to introduce the next part of the webinar dedicated to the new Green Claims Directive. So Asta, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are very happy from nova-Institut to come to our part of this wonderful workshop. Nicolas Haag is one of our team of policy and economy at nova-Institut, and as said already, we are part of this BioReCer project. So Nicolas is not someone stranger, but he's also from our team from nova-Institut. Just shortly to say, nova-Institut is a private research institute. So there are, of course, a lot to learn about the new initiatives of EU, about the green claims, and Nicolas is a policy expert, and he has also background in agriculture, so he fits perfectly to this workshop. Nico, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Asta, for this kind introduction. I hope you can hear me, and I'm now going to share my screen.
We hear you perfect.
Yes.
Great. And you should also see my screen now, right? Perfect. So today I'm going to talk to you about so-called green claims. So in the BioReCer project, it's all about the certification of the bio-based resources that are being used in products, ideally. But also there's a lot of labels and certifications and claims that can be made on the final products in the end. And especially for these kind of claims, these green claims for products, for sustainable products, there has been a proposal for a new directive from the European Commission. And I want to give you brief overview of this directive, of this proposed directive, and how this Green Claims Directive aims to counteract greenwashing with the measures that are being proposed. So yeah, as I introduced already, the nova-Institut, it's part of the BioReCer consortium, and also it's also part in the very in a project in the Horizon Europe project that is very similar to BioReCer. It's called 3CO, so 3CO, concise consumer communication for bio-based products. That's the focus here, where we are also working on a similar topics. So these kinds of issues regarding green claims and how to communicate sustainability are, I think, important for both of these projects. So that's why it's very interesting to have a closer look to that. And yeah, I want to start with what are green claims, and why do we need a directive for these claims? Why is there the need for some kind of measures or a legal framework for these green claims? What we see today is that a lot of companies are currently operating in the European Union, and that they often make voluntary claims, so-called environmental claims, and these claims usually have, or not usually, but in many cases have no or only little evidence backing these claims. So these claims are made very unsubstantiated. And a study or an analysis from the European Commission found out that over half of the claims, so 53% of the green claims that can be found on products right now in the EU and on services make vague, misleading, or unfounded claims, or have unfounded information. And 40%, so almost half, have no supporting evidence behind these claims. So there's a lot of need to have a framework that regulates these claims, and that shows producers how to make these claims correctly, because finally eventually these claims have a low trust in consumers, and the vast amount of claims that can be made is very overwhelming for the consumer. So these need more clarification and more strict rules. To give you some examples of what these green claims may look like or sound like, for example, you might have heard about that or read that somewhere, something like packaging that is made of 30% recycled plastic. This might be one of the green claims that Also, CO2 emissions that are linked to the production of this product are halved as compared to 2020 or some other point in time. And these claims, as nice as they look and read, are not always really backed by evidence. And when we have claims like this that are not backed by evidence or are made up better than they are, we talk about greenwashing, because greenwashing is a behavior or an activity that makes people believe that a company is doing more to protect the environment than it really is. And this is obviously nothing that we want on our products, because we want, as a consumer, we want to have labels or information that we can trust to make an informed decision in the store, in the shop, and to really know that the claims that are being made are true and not something that the company makes up. And over half of all the green labels in the EU today lack verification, and over 200 of these sustainability labels used in the EU are in place, and they have vastly different levels of transparency. So it's very overwhelming and confusing for the consumer in the end. Some real case examples for greenwashing, so where these claims have been made without any evidence. For example, the last FIFA World Cup in Qatar was claimed to be carbon neutral or fully carbon neutral tournament. And beforehand, the FIFA estimated how much emissions are produced by the tournament, and these emissions have then been offset and not reduced. So these emissions have not been reduced to a point where these don't occur at all, but they have been offset with some kind of schemes, carbon offsetting schemes, and more than half of these emissions have been offset through a very dubious compensation company. So there's no clear evidence that these emissions really have been reduced or captured again. Another example is a glass cleaner by SC Johnson, which claimed that the bottles were made from 100% ocean plastic, and also this claim that it's ocean plastic is very, very vague, because in this case, the plastic never, for the bottles, that was never in the ocean. It was pulled from plastic banks in Indonesia, for example, or in the Philippines and Haiti. And this plastic from these plastic banks might have ended up in the ocean at some point, but it was never really inside the ocean. So this is where claims are being made wrongfully. Also, regarding recyclability, there are claims that we see. For example, Keurig is a Canadian or is a company that for coffee capsules and coffee makers, and they led Canadian buyers to believe that they could recycle the single-use plastic coffee pods by simply breaking them open, emptying out the coffee, and throwing the empty pod into the recycling bins. But in reality, most of the Canadian provinces didn't really accept these capsules. So this was also a wrongfully made claim. And this is what we want, or what the EU wants to prevent with the Green Claims Directive. There's also green claims that are backed by evidence. Usually there's an LCA, so a life cycle assessment necessary to back these claims by evidence. Here are just some examples that Nova was also involved in backing these claims. For example, the first case with Avantium, we did a peer-reviewed LCA, a life cycle assessment on PEF-based bottles. And this is really peer-reviewed, scientifically based evidence on claims, on environmental claims that can then be made, which is how it should usually work, and not without any evidence. So, yeah, what we know is that green claims can already be found on a lot of products, and a lot of companies are using them. A lot of company reports are referring to them. And of course, green claims are not necessarily always greenwashing. There's a lot of very well backed examples and very good examples for green claims that have been substantiated, that are true to what they say. But it's important to filter out those that are not really doing what they say they do, and that are actually falling in the greenwashing category. And so there's also, for example, another directive in place already in the EU that is called the European Commission's Unfair Commercial Practices Directive. And this directive lays out the framework that misleading claims can be subject of legal action. And this is supported by this new directive that is proposed by the EU, which is the Green Claims Directive. And this new proposed law on green claims is the EU taking action to address greenwashing and to protect consumers and the environment eventually. So I want to give you some idea on what actually is in the Green Claims Directive and what it means for the green claims that are being made in the future. This directive proposal was published in March 2023, and it's still in the proposal phase, so it's nothing legally binding yet. But the overall framework, the overall direction that the Commission, the EU, is going to can already be seen from this proposal, and only small details, minor details, are likely being changed from this proposal. And in this proposal, the Commission proposes new rules to stop companies from making misleading claims about the environmental merits of their products and services. And also, eventually, this allows the consumers to make informed environmental choices. It aims to make green claims reliable, comparable, and also verifiable across all of the EU. So no differences between the member states, between different labeling schemes, and so on. It should be reliable and comparable. Of course, it should protect from greenwashing, and it's also supporting the transformation or the creation of a circular and green EU economy by these informed purchasing decisions. And it's also helping, which is very important for producers, it's helping to establish a level playing field when it comes to these environmental performances of products. Because when we have a playing field where one producer can say my product is environmentally friendly without backing it, and the other producer says the same, but actually backed it and has more costs to have an environmentally friendly product and also have the green claim being put on it in a scientifically sound way, this is not a level playing field. So the producer that is faking its environmental claim is definitely in the on the better side. So this playing field should be leveled out, so that everyone has the same rules to stick to. The proposal targets misleading green claims. So, for example, very generic claims or unsubstantiated claims. It's also targeting or relating to claims that relate to future environmental performances. These have to be supported by clear, verifiable methods. So, like future developments of these kinds of claims, or future developments of a property that the product might have cannot be put on the product without really verifying it. And also environmentally friendly features that are already required by law are also sometimes found on the product. Pointing out that this is a very specific and positive thing of this product, even though it is mandatory by law. So these kind of claims are also going to be illegal once this directive enters into force. And it's also establishing minimum requirements to substantiate the claim and also to communicate the claim. So not any claim can be made in this directive. There are some kind of minimum requirements in there that you have to follow. And the key measures to that are that clear criteria have to be developed on how companies should prove the environmental claims and labels. Also, requirements for these claims and labels have to be checked by an independent and accredited verifier. And new rules on governance and environmental labeling schemes to ensure that they are solid, transparent, and reliable have to be introduced, so that there's really a third party controlling all the scientific evidence that is needed. And also it says that the substantiation of these claims has to be based on state-of-the-art evidence, which follows international standards. And for example, in the case of environmental footprint cases or claims, so how environmentally friendly it is regarding the environmental footprint, these have to be backed by life cycle assessments of the whole product lifetime. And this can either be the product environmental footprint method or PEF method, or it can be the common LCA ISO standards that are in place already and are being applied to a lot of products already. These can also be used to verify these life cycle environmental footprints. But only the PEF, the PEF method, allows the results to be summarized as a single score. So if you want to make a claim on the environmental footprint as some kind of single score, so this scores on a range of 1 to 10 as an 8, for example, you can only use the PEF method for that, because this aims to have a framework that is comparable or can compare one product to other products, which is not possible with the other ISO standards. Also, cherry picking of specific environmentally positive characteristics of a product is going to be banned with this. So when you have a product that is has one very positive environmental characteristic, but others maybe fall more on the negative side, you cannot cherry pick this one positive thing and point it out. You have to take into account all environmental aspects and impacts which are significant to assessing the environmental performance. So potential trade-offs, for example, have to be taken into account when you make a statement on your product. Also, these claims have to be put into some kind of relation to the common practice that is in place right now. So when you make a statement on the environmental performance, you have to put it into relation to how normal common practice products in this category are being produced. So you have a comparison to the status quo. And these claims can, as I said, cannot specifically be made on requirements that are already imposed by law. So if you have to follow some kind of rules by law, you cannot also claim that on your product. I mean, one of the main advantages of these green claims is that you that you're communicating in the end something positive about your product, something that is probably also a good reason to have a higher price point for your product, that the consumer knows, okay, this is more expensive than similar products, but this one is environmental friendly. So how do you, what do you have to follow to communicate these green claims? As I said, these have to be substantiated. They must give information on how the consumer should use the product, especially if the use time is very long, or most of the environmental footprint is being produced, or it's in the time the consumer is using the product. So this is why you have to give information on how the consumer should use the product, and further information. So, for example, on the environmental aspects, on the standards that you used, the underlying calculations on how you came to the conclusion that it's environmentally friendly. These must be made available either by physical form, via a web link, or also a QR code that you can scan with your, for example, mobile phone to provide further information to the consumer. And what's also very important here is that the Green Claims Directive proposal excludes claims that are already covered by existing EU rules. For example, the EU Eco-label. This is already, in EU law, it also already follows the same principles as the principles that are proposed in the Green Claims Directive. So these do not have to follow the Green Claims Directive again. And also these aggregate scorings that I mentioned before. So if you want to have one aggregated score, how your product performs environmentally, these can only be done with the product environmental footprint methodology. Also, no national or regional environmental labeling schemes can be established by public authorities of the member states. New labeling schemes may only be developed under EU law, so that we have conformity between all the member states in the EU, and not that every member state uses different schemes or labeling or certifications. This is always only on the level of EU law to develop new labeling schemes. And when these labeling schemes are being introduced or being made available, these requirements and conditions to use these schemes and what you have to maybe pay for the use of this claim should be proportionate to the size and the turnover of the company, so that small and medium enterprises can also make use of these claims without having to pay large sums that, for example, large enterprises could pay or are paying. And also micro enterprises, so very, very small enterprises, are exempt from these rules in the beginning. This is probably only a very small amount of companies that fall into the category micro enterprises that are benefiting from this exempt. But for the moment, once this directive should enter into force, micro enterprises are exempt, to not put a further burden on them. And I mentioned it before, the product environmental footprint. It's a methodology to assess the environmental performance of a product. I want to give you a really quick overview of what it means and why it's different from the ISO standards, and why this can be used to compare it to other products. Generally, for the life cycle assessment of a product, there are many similar but in detail and different assessment methodologies that have been identified. And when we look at the product environmental footprint, this development of this methodology they had in mind to have a methodology that facilitates comparability over flexibility. So in the ISO standards, for example, you have more flexibility for the different factors factoring into the LCA, but with the PEF, you want to have comparability. And therefore, you have the PEF methodology, which is very close to LCA methodology. And you also have product-specific product category rules, which means you have for product groups, you have for each product group that is covered by the PEF, you have standardized modeling assumptions and benchmark values, for example, transport distances, energy supply, description of the functional unit, and so on. So these benchmark values that are used across the whole product group make it easier or make it possible to compare products within the same product group. But these category rules are very hard to derive, and today there's only a very, very limited amount of product category rules available. And it's also very difficult to find a consensus for these category rules. And especially in academia, there has been criticism and significant issues have been pointed out when it comes to these category rules. So just to quote one scientific publication on this, the PEF method could play an essential role in developing a market for green products, but it has met substantial criticism from academia. Some of the issues identified in the criticism are addressed by the updated PEF method that is also part of the Green Claims Directive proposal, but there are still significant issues that should be addressed to improve the PEF method in the future. So yeah, what we can take from this is that the PEF method is still under development. The category rules especially are still under development, and it's hard to find consensus here. So there's only category rules for very limited amount of product groups. But it is very likely that once the Green Claims Directive enters into force, the PEF methodology will probably be the backbone of the standardized assessment methodology for the green claims. Even though there's still a lot of uncertainty, this is likely going to be the backbone, the most used methodology. What's also important or interesting to know is what happens if a producer fails to comply with these proposed rules on their products. So first of all, each member state lays down rules on the penalties themselves, so they can differ between states. But the nature of these rules and the type of these penalties are similar between member states, because the overall framework on how these penalties should look like is also defined in this Green Claims Directive. And these penalties should be effective, proportionate, and dissuasive. And the type and level of penalties should take into account the nature, the gravity, extent, and the duration of the infringement. So was it a very, very bold and then over a long period of time, the infringement, or was it only a minor mistake? Also, it should take into account if it's an intentional or negligent character of infringement. And also, what is the financial strength of the responsible actor? So if it's a large enterprise that is doing this in a large scale, this is a different penalty than a small or medium enterprise that is only a very small actor, financially speaking. So the penalties differ between these as well. Also, they should take into account the economic benefits that could be derived from this mistake, from this infringement. If the economic actor made a lot of economic benefits from misleading claims, then the penalty should be higher than if it's only a small economic benefit. And also, it should take into account if there have been previous infringements for the green claims. So if the economic actor, the producer, has done that before. And the types of penalties that can be enforced for the actors shall include fines, also confiscation of revenues, and also a temporary exclusion from public procurement, for example, also from public funding and similar measures for a maximum amount of 12 months. So this is what the type of penalties look like that producers that fail to comply with these rules have to fear. So yeah, as my last slide, I want to give you an overview of the key takeaways on what are the next steps for this Green Claims Directive proposal. So it aims to prohibit the unsubstantiated claims. So if you make claims that are scientifically backed, that are safe and sound and peer reviewed and follow the common standards in the EU, this directive is not going to change anything for you. The substantiation of the claims must be done via LCA methodologies. As I said, either the ISO standards or the PEF methodology. What's currently important for this directive is that it's still in the proposal phase. So this has been proposed by the European Commission in March, as I said, but before this becomes legally binding, meaning entering into force in the European Union, this proposal must be approved by the European Council and also the European Parliament. And as you may know, there's going to be elections for the European Parliament next year. So before this next legislation period starts, we cannot expect really entering this directive to enter into force, because there's a lot that is still on the plate of the current legislation, and yeah, a lot of this stuff is also being carried over to the next. And but what we can say is that we most certainly will have the final directive entering into force in 2024, so next year. And from that point on, member states will have 2 years to implement this directive into national law. And how this looks like for a member state is that they have the Green Claims Directive, which sets out the general framework. And within this framework, the member state has to develop and operate the national implementation and the national mechanisms that follow these rules. So there is some kind of room for interpretation for the member states, but the overall framework on how this should look like is set by the European Union. As I said, the product environmental footprint methodology is most likely going to be the backbone of these green claims. A lot of uncertainty is still there. A lot of it is still under development, especially the category rules. And whenever we're talking about life cycle methodologies, either the PEF or ISO, following the ISO standards, you always need a lot of data to calculate the LCA for your product. And it's either if we talk about green claims, or if we talk about, for example, the environmental reporting obligations that also come to the attention of the companies now, it's always very important to have a lot of data available that is thoroughly explained, and that all the claims that you make in either the reports or on the products are backed by this data. So what I would say, my recommendation for stakeholders that are in this group that have to do managerial environmental reports, or that want to make green claims for their products, data collection is very important, and start gathering data as soon as possible to be prepared when these rules enter into force. And with that, I want to thank you, and I want to give you a little heads up that we from the nova-Institut have a session on this topic coming up on December 13th. It's all about the LCA methodologies, so the ISO standards and also the PEF, but also what it means for businesses, what it means in policy, and you can find out everything about that in the following the link that is on the screen right now, events.renewable-carbon.eu, if you're interested in learning more from our sustainability and LCA experts on this topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicolas, for the excellent presentation. Before we take questions from the audience, it would also be nice if the audience would like to tell us their experience about the green claims, if they have found already misleading claims, and or something, if they think that something is worth to think about, considering now the special area of bio-based waste or side stream of agricultural or forest residues. So Nicolas, I'm very interested to find out about the product environmental footprint. What do you think? It is a practical tool, or do you think, for example, at the moment, I didn't hear anything about any kind of labels. I heard only about EU Eco Label. How do this regulative stand for the labels that are on place at the moment? Because of course they are also reliable third-party stuff that could be used for the green claims. So at the moment I see only LCA or product environmental footprint here, and there's also something that is also broadly used is the self-declaration, is it done then that you can't do any self-declarations anymore? So would like to hear your thoughts about that before we take questions from the audience.
Of course. So let me start with the product environmental footprint. I think once the methodology is fully derived, fully developed, and all the category rules are in place and are backed by science, and there's a consensus about this, it's a very important and useful tool to really have comparability between products, because otherwise these claims are always, when we follow the ISO standards, these claims will always also rely on how the LCA, the specific LCA for the product has been carried out. What were the specific rules that have been set for this LCA? And when we use something like the product environmental footprint, which is standardized more and allows for comparison between products, this makes it a little easier for the consumers to understand the meaning behind the claim that is on the product. And of course, there's already a lot of labels in place that can be used to verify or to show that your product is environmentally friendly in some kind of way. So in order for them to be used in the future, once this directive enters into force, they of course also have to show that they are following the principles in this directive. So when you have a label that is making claims on the environmental friendliness of a product, so saving emissions, they have to show that they are following the LCA methodology and that they follow all the rules that are set in this directive. And then these can be used, of course. This is also an important step for the process when this directive enters into force. So let's take the example of Germany. Once this directive enters into force, all the member states, also Germany, have to implement this directive into national law and to have to determine a third party that is taking care of all this certification and labeling. So that is verifying that all these labels that are being used fall into this framework and are following these rules. And once this third party is chosen or is set up, then all the existing labels can verify with them that they are following these rules and can, of course, still be used on the products as well. But they have to, of course, follow these rules in the Green Claims Directive then as well.
Yeah. Yes, and the certification of the self-declaration, did you look at that?
So yeah, self-declaration. So that is basically what's happening. If I'm understanding that correctly, that's basically what's happening right now. So these claims that are being made on products are usually voluntarily. So they decide on their own that they want to make this claim on a product, and for a company to do this. For a company to make a claim on their product without having any science behind this, without any LCA, for example, or any other proof of scientific proof of this claim, they will not be able to make this claim on their own anymore. But this is exactly what the directive aims to do, to remove all the wrongfully made claims from the market and to give strict rules on what claims can be made voluntarily. So the companies then have to, in order to make these claims, have to follow these rules, either by carrying out the scientific work themselves in a peer-reviewed LCA, for example, or following existing label schemes.
Yeah, thank you. So I would like to give the floor also to the audience. If there are some questions you want to raise to Nico about this, you can just raise your hand. And meanwhile, we are waiting for the questions. I would like to ask, what do you think will be the overall impact of this regulation at the moment?
So I think my personal or professional opinion is that it is really going to help the consumers. So I think I personally see a lot of products in stores right now that make some kind of claim, but you never know. Yeah, it's not transparent. You don't know what the calculation behind that is, or if there's any background to this or any evidence behind this. And I think a lot of consumers really want to make environmentally friendly decisions in the supermarket, for example, or in stores generally. And once this directive really has entered into force and has changed the landscape of claims that are being made to only substantiated claims that are really showing a positive impact on the environment. This is something very positive for the consumer, because they can be sure that the claim that is being made is really true. So I think the impact is going to be really, really great for the consumers. And also, I think it also helps a lot of companies to really think about the environmental friendliness of their products and maybe think twice about the practices that are being used right now and to maybe change some things up and then switch to more environmentally friendly technologies or ways to produce their product. Because it's also going to be a financial incentive for the producers as well, because truly environmental friendly products can be sold at a higher price, for example. And this is something that the producers are probably going to like or to want to have a look at. And when this directive is in place and they can really say this claim that we make is exactly what it says, it's going to help to sell the product.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What do you think? How many time will go that all these product environmental footprints are there and that can be really used? And
yeah, that's a good question. That's very hard to say. So there are already some category rules, as I said. So some of the product categories can also be calculated or applied to the PEF methodology. But as I said, the overall Green Claims Directive has not even entered into force, which is probably going to happen next year. From that point on, the member states have 2 years until this this directive has to be translated into member state law, into national law. And I don't think that, so this would mean 2026. And to have a really wide range of product groups represented by the PEF methodology, I think this is also going to take a lot of time because there's a vast majority of products that could be covered by the PEF, but that have to be looked at separately, and all the rules for these products have to be developed separately. And my personal opinion is that this directive is going to be supplemented by delegated acts and by amendments over the course of time to include more and more products in this methodology, and that it's going to start with only a handful maybe, and it's more of a work in progress. But let's hope that in 2026, when it's going to be national law, hopefully, that there's already a lot of category rules and product groups applicable to the PEF methodology, so that it really has an impact.
Mm-hmm. Very good, thank you. And what about the bio-based waste streams or side stream of products? Are there already categories for such a product that we deal with in BioReCer, for example?
So, I mean, bio-based feedstocks in general are treated differently in LCA. So, first of all, I have to say I'm not an LCA expert. We have other experts for that, and I think some of them are already also in the workshop today. So maybe some of them can. I think if Nadia is still here, she can give some more insights. But there's so the feedstock type that is used in a product is treated differently in LCA. So if we have fossil feedstocks or bio-based feedstock, that makes a difference in LCA. And if we go a step further and use bio-based waste streams in a product, that's even better in LCA calculation. So the environmental performance should in the end be better when we use bio-waste streams compared to primary biomass, for example, and also, of course, compared to fossil feedstocks. So this is how the bio-waste streams can then be positively represented in the green claims that are being made.
Very good. We have a question from you. Thank for insights and great presentation. When it comes to claims that it used in different member states, how would translation of claims to different language be handled? I think there will be like an EU eco label. There are also every time that's put in every language.
But it's actually a very good question. I mean, there are a lot of different labels already in place, and we have to see if all of them will be made available for the whole EU market. If so, they are likely going to be translated into English. Otherwise, they won't have a chance on the EU market. But that's a very good question. I'm not sure if I can give you an answer to that right now, because it hasn't started yet. So the directive is still under development. It's not in place yet. And also all the national bodies that are taking care of the green claims and all the labeling schemes have yet to be formed and put into place. So I think once all the member states start the implementation of the Green Claims Directive into national law, we might have a better idea on how this will work out.
So thank you, Nico. If there is a question from the audience, we can take one more question. If this is not the case, I would like to thank everybody for participating. Of course, first, I would like to thank everybody who was participating to this workshop and who has already registered to the stakeholder platform. And if you did not register until now, please do it now. You have the link in the chat, because then you have the possibility to find out all kind of events that will be there in the future. We will have nice stakeholder event, also a big one like this one next year, but we will also have trainings. You will have the possibility to participate, to test these methodologies that we are developing in these BioReCer products. And this is very important for us. If you stay tuned with us at the stakeholder platform. And we had a very rich day with lots of information, and you will have time to digest that, because we will make all the presentations available at the homepage and also at the stakeholder platform. And of course, you will also get it in your inbox. And I would also like to thank Daniela for organizing this wonderful workshop. And also, of course, Pedro from Setaqua, who was giving us insights into the BioReCer project. And of course, also Elisa giving us such a good information about what we are measuring with the circular bioeconomy at the moment. And of course, again, thanks to Nicolas about the green claims. And I would like to give Daniela the last word to close this meeting.
Thank you very much, Asta, for your presentation and introduction to the Nicolas presentation. Just to come back to something that didn't work before, and to close with very little interaction the meeting, I asked to all of you to say something about the project in general, and regarding the results and outcomes that Pedro shared with us. What results, outcomes from the project do you see as the most interesting? So have a click on this survey and rank them in order from the most important as your perception. 1 is the most important, and 3 it's the less important. Let us know just this insight before to go home, and we can have this last point from you. And thank you everyone again, also from my side.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Just 1 second to receive your answer, and then we will close the meeting, and thank you all. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a nice evening.